Welcome back. Surprise, surprise. For those of you who don't know me, I am Kladi, and I'm here hosting Jesús Ramirez, which is coming straight for our Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge, which we'll be reviewing in just a second. I just want to say a quick hello to the chat. Alberto, what's up? And I see Valentina, Jody, Justin, Paco, team. Nice to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining and tuning in with us. We're going to be here for 2 hours covering Lightroom and how to create presets. But we have a very busy day ahead. After us, we have more stream. The stream keep coming. We never stop. And let's go over and let's have a look at the actual schedule for today. So today on the Adobe Live, our busy bees start with a Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with Jesús Ramirez. And we're going to follow with Jesús Ramirez creating photo presets in Lightroom. And then Andrea is going to be with the XD Daily Creative Challenge. And then Andrew is going to go live with branding and identity. But we are here, again, as I say, with Jesús. If you follow the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge, this is a great time to be here on this stream because we are going to be reviewing the actual challenges with Jesús live. So keep them challenges coming. And if you don't know about the challenge, let me show you real quick. So let's jump in my desktop here. If you go into behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, you'll be able to join the challenge here by clicking on the big blue button. I usually host the challenge as well. I think he's a veteran for sure, but we love to share with you our tips and tricks. And then most importantly, make sure to join the community chat. In fact, once you join the community chat by clicking on this link here that says community chat, you'll be able to jump into our amazing connected international world of Discord, where all of you and us as well, we share our work in order to have feedback. We're going to have feedback around 11, so make sure to stay tuned until the end of the stream because we're going to have Jesús reviewing his stream live with you. And make sure to post your work here into the current challenge tab. I'm going to zoom in just to make sure that, it's just right here. It's a current challenge tab. And we are going to be having, as I said, Jesús reviewing it live, but also you're reviewing it afterwards as well on Discord. Is that correct? We're going to be doing Discord at 2:30 p.m. That's going to be just audio, no video. So make sure you log in into Discord at 2:30 p.m. Pacific so that I could check out the stuff that you're seeing on screen now, like right above our heads. And it's just like here behind Jesús, we have a voice channel, and we are going to have a little, he's going to have a live voice feedback onto Discord itself. But let's go back and for those of you who do not perhaps see the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge and just tune in for the first time, let's introduce a little bit more. Let's learn a little bit more about Jesús. I'm going to start by sharing your YouTube channel. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, my YouTube channel. So it's titled the Photoshop Training Channel, and surprise, surprise, I teach Photoshop at that YouTube channel. I'm at 9 actually because it's not on my screen and I can't see.
Let me just switch it over because I was just looking at his channel by myself.
Yeah, so I really can't see that far into the display here, but I'm looking at it now and I'm at 993,000 subscribers. I'm almost at the 1 million mark.
Zoom it in. He's almost there.
So if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe so that I can get to 1 million soon. But yeah, that's where I teach Photoshop on YouTube. So you can check out a bunch of tutorials there related to Photoshop. And actually, this is a Lightroom stream. So if you don't mind switching over to my screen, let me just show them. Actually, before you switch, let me bring it up. I have the Creative Cloud app. So am I on my screen?
Yes.
Cool. So on the Creative Cloud app, you'll notice that there is a Lightroom little tab here under where it says All Apps. If you click on that, it will open up. And they are Lightroom courses. So you can see 3 Lightroom courses here. These 3, the one on top on the right and the 2 on the bottom, they're mine. So if you want to learn with me Lightroom, then check those out. You can just click on, for example, the first one that I did was the photo editing course. And there are these videos that will teach you how to use Lightroom. You can read the posts that I created, and also, of course, watch the video, download the sample files. Also, under tutorials in this page, and hopefully I can find it because I haven't been to this page in a while. Under tutorials, you can see the beginner photo editing course, which is the one that I was just showing you. So you can learn how to use Lightroom there. I have a local adjustments course, so all these videos are from me, so you can check those out. And there's an enhance your photos with presets course, which is basically what we're going to be talking about today. So if there's something that I don't cover or that you wanted to learn about presets, it's all in there. So once again, you can get here by going into your Creative Cloud app. From the Creative Cloud app, just click on any one of these courses. It doesn't really matter which one. You'll be taken into the Lightroom tutorials page. And from here, you can click on tutorials to see all the tutorials, not just the course that you clicked on from the app. And then you can see the courses that I made, and not just the ones that I made. There's some courses in here from Jen Cavilli. I cannot remember all the authors who have made courses except for Jen, but I'm sure they're all great. I think there's some from...
Sorry to interrupt you real quick, but I've seen Alberto saying that there are about 200 people watching, so here we go.
Oh, wow. All right.
You'll be hitting the milestones really soon. If I was you, I'll show your YouTube channel again to make sure that everyone subscribes.
Sure.
Well done, Alberto. Very good call.
Thank you, Alberto. Yeah, so Photoshop Training Channel is the YouTube channel. So you can just go on YouTube and type in Photoshop Training Channel.
Let's see if we can switch it here to my screen. Let's make this magic happen. And here it is. We have Jesús YouTube channel, which is called the Photoshop Training Channel. And just before I introduce you real quick already, we know that I say that he's my Photoshop and Lightroom guru, because every time that we discuss, when we prepare our challenges, when we do some client jobs, I'm always there, try to ring and text Jesus and discuss Photoshop and Lightroom, and he always comes up with some tricks that I didn't, and some tools that I didn't even know existed. But let's focus on today. So today we're going to be talking about Lightroom and how to create presets. And that's one of the biggest and main amazing, I would say, advanced use of Lightroom, the fact that we can work smarter, we can improve our workflow with an app that is cloud-based. And of course, I'm talking about Lightroom CC, but perhaps we can start from here. You can start by showing us or tell us the difference between Lightroom CC, and also Lightroom is on mobile. So ready to work and edit your photo with your preset that you're gonna create with Jesús today on the go.
So hold that thought for a second. I just read a comment from Omar. It says, tienes que hacerlo en español, which means you have to do them in Spanish. I'm guessing, I don't know if it means the streams, but both Kladi and I stream for Adobe Latin America as well. So we've done streams in Spanish. So if you're in Latin America or anywhere in the world, really, you can type in on Facebook, Adobe Latin America, and then you can, from that page, see the Adobe streams. And Kladi's done one, and I've probably done about 7 streams for Adobe Latin America. And also I have a YouTube channel in Spanish. So if you just type in Videos PTC.
Here it is. I happen to be, I'm not subscribed.
Oh yeah, she's not subscribed to my Spanish channel. But
let's fix that right away.
But to be frank with you guys, I post a lot more in the English channel. I probably have maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 videos on the Spanish channel, but I have over 300 in the English channel. So there's some content in Spanish, not as much as the English side. But I just wanted to let Alberto, who was that? Omar. I just wanted to tell Omar that, excuse me, that I do have some content in Spanish.
And Alberto, he said Adobe Latin America, not Live America. But anyway, let's get started. We really need to focus into Lightroom. As I said, Jesús, if you can please explain us the difference, because I was just talking about how Lightroom is amazing to make you work on the go with the mobile app. If you can please tell us the difference between Classic, CC, and the Lightroom app.
Yeah, so I'm going to be working with Lightroom today. Notice that the word CC is no longer after the title on the top left. I don't know what the details were behind that, but this is what most people refer to as Adobe CC, Lightroom CC, Lightroom Creative Cloud, which means that it's a cloud-based editor. The photos that you sync to this version of Lightroom will sync to the Creative Cloud, and you can work on them from anywhere. So think of it as a cloud-based editing system, as where Lightroom Classic is more of your like hard drive in computer editing system. In terms of editing photos, they're almost the same. There's a few slight differences, but the real power with Lightroom Classic comes with its organizational capabilities. So if you're a photographer who's shooting events or shooting hundreds or thousands of photos, then that's probably where you're going to lean towards. If you're someone like me who's not shooting events and I'm just shooting either on my phone or with my digital camera, then maybe Lightroom, the cloud-based version, will be the way to go. The cool thing about Lightroom, the cloud-based version, is that you can edit your photos from anywhere, really, from your desktop, like I'm going to be doing today, from the mobile app on your phone. There's also a Lightroom camera, which allows you to shoot raw images from your phone.
And it's great for beginner.
And it's great for beginners.
Nor is saying on the chat, I'm a beginner, but that's the beauty of it, especially with the presets that you're going to be creating today.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a great app for beginners. It's basically what I use to edit my photos when I'm not going to take them into Photoshop, because a lot of times there's no real need to take your photos into Photoshop, since you may not necessarily want to create composites and do advanced stylizations to them. Maybe you just want to color correct them, maybe enhance them in one way, even apply certain effects, because as you're going to see today, you can apply effects to Lightroom photos and then save them as presets. So you can just save them with one click. Now, something I wanted to mention that not a lot of people know is that you can go into the, Lightroom.
.adobe?
Yeah, lightroom.adobe.com, and then you'll go into a cloud-based version of Lightroom. So you can edit your photos here. Actually, here's a funny photo I took with, so this is me and Matt Klaskowski. And Matt was doing...
You were hosting.
I was hosting Matt on a Lightroom preset course, and Matt and me have this ongoing joke that I'm his biggest fan, because on Facebook, I got a notification that said, "You're now Matt Klaskowski's biggest fan," or something like that. And I have a badge when I comment on his Facebook page after my name saying I'm his biggest fan. So while he was at Adobe Live, we took that photo together, just saying, "Hey, I'm your biggest fan," type of thing with a heart.
And of course there is Mr. Meow, is the only member.
No, Mr. Meow's here. There he is, being a cutie as usual. And we used them for the Daily Creative Challenge. But anyway, the reason that I wanted to show you this page, lightroom.adobe.com, is because when you're looking at a photo that you have synced through your desktop or phone or tablet into Adobe Lightroom, you can click on this edit button, and you can actually edit the photo from the browser. So if you were to forget your phone, your iPad, your laptop, and you're at someone's house, maybe
you run out of battery.
Oh yeah, and anything that happens, but you still have access to a browser. Maybe your friend has a computer, but they're not a creative, so they don't have the Creative Cloud, or whatever the case may be. You can go into lightroom.adobe.com, open the photos that you've synced into Lightroom, and you can still make adjustments. So I can adjust this photo of Mr. Meow, and I have most of the editing tools. They're not all there, but most of them are. And you even have access to your presets. So maybe if you were to save your presets and you forget your computer, you can still apply presets from, anything that you like. And actually, these are presets that I made for that course that I was talking about, that Adobe course. I made a presets pack to create a vintage effect. Actually, I just applied a whole bunch of effects there, so it doesn't look that great. But these are meant to just be applied one at a time on a photo, maybe two.
And it's like creating, the fact that you can save it on Lightroom is like creating your personalized filters. So for example, for Instagram, or when you share your photo, you don't want all the photo to look the same. And if you want to set a particular mood, or you want to create something that is in tune with your brand, this is a perfect way to personalize it, correct?
Yeah, it's just a great way, just having a consistent mood throughout your photos. Don't look at my Instagram page, but goodness, actually do look at it, but I'm not referring to myself. What a lot of really good Instagrammers do is they have a stylized look on all their photos. Ariel Vey, who I hosted here at Adobe Live like a month ago, she has a stylized look on all her photos. So if you look at her Instagram, everything is cohesive. And I know for a fact that she uses presets because we talked about it here. You can check out the recording, Ariel Vey, talking about Lightroom presets. And that's a very good example of having a cohesive theme and using presets to help you get started. Something very important to note with presets is that it's not like a one-size-fits-all solution. It'll work great with some photos, but for other photos, presets won't look necessarily that good because presets are created with a type of lighting scenario in mind, with a type of temperature in mind. And if you get a photo that has a completely different lighting and color temperature and apply a filter, I'm sorry, not a filter, a preset, then it won't necessarily work. It doesn't mean that the preset is bad. It just means that you have to adjust it just a little more than you would with a photo that had similar lighting and similar temperature.
So let's jump into the actual Lightroom app and let's start creating some presets. So while you launch your app and you dig through your photos, I just want to remind everyone that we are going to be giving feedback, both of us, but mainly Jesús, on today's Daily Creative Challenge. So if I'm correct, during the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge of today, which was challenge number 2, you have showed how to create color correction in order to match the top layer and the sort of foreground layer and the background layer of a composite in order to make it feel more realistic. So I strongly encourage you to post your artwork and your challenges into the Discord current challenge channel. I always get confused between channel and challenge. Channel challenge. So the current challenge, the current channel, and you're gonna have the current challenge posting. And again, as I always said, this is a super safe space. We're all here to learn. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner, it doesn't matter if you're an advanced. We are eager to see your work. I found it very inspiring, and also I think it's very brave of you to share it with everyone. So we really look forward. We're gonna be reviewing it just before 11, so stay tuned because we look forward to see and to have your live feedback with your Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge host. But let's get started into Lightroom and let's create some presets.
Awesome. I do see a question in the chat by Melinda. Is Lightroom only used for raw photos? No, it's not. You could also use Lightroom for JPEG images or for non-raw photos. The downside is that you won't get the full capability of Lightroom. Lightroom does give you a few extra capabilities when you're using raw photos. That doesn't mean that it's not good for a JPEG photo or a photo that is not a raw image. It just means that you won't get to use Lightroom at its full potential. So if you want to use Lightroom at its full potential, use raw photo. But it's also very good, and it's actually amazing for non-raw images. So I'm going to be working with Lightroom, not Lightroom Classic. And basically, when you start out, you might see the home page, and that's fine. On the left-hand side here, we have this My Photos tab. You can just click on that. It's an icon of like 3 books, and one of them is kind of falling over. Or you can just press the P key on the keyboard to enable or disable that particular tab. And then you're going to have your list of photos and your album. So this is a way that you can organize your images into albums, basically categories, and then into groups. So I have different groups here, different albums, and the one that I'm going to work with is titled, appropriately, Adobe Live. And
you've done your homework.
I've done my homework, yeah. I'm in the right show, right? This is Adobe Live. Because if it isn't, then I don't know what I've been doing for the last hour and a half now.
And also, I love the fact that you pick up the question of the chat. And actually, probably I want to remind you guys, we are live and on behance.net/live. So if you are on YouTube and you're posting question, make sure to jump on the behance.net/live so we can answer your question live and keep them question coming. We're more than happy to reply to all of your queries.
Yeah. So these are the images that we're going to work with today. And just to put it out there, not all of these photos are mine. Some of them were shot by my good friend Mark Heaps, who's a photographer out of Austin. You can find him at at Life by Pixels. I mean, I can't believe I forgot his handle. At Life by Pixels. Mark Heaps. He's an Adobe Max speaker. Fun fact: he was the #1 rated Adobe Max speaker at Adobe Max last year. He beat me by a lot. So he's a very
well done,
very talented guy. But anyway, some of those are his. Some of these are mine. Some of these, I'm trying to see if there's anybody else I should credit with these photos. But I think most of the photos in here are either his or mine. So let's first talk about what a preset is, right? So we're gonna just start with this photo here. And this is actually one of Mark's. So thank you, Mark, for allowing me to use your photos. And I'm gonna click on the edit panel, which is here on the right-hand side. If you hover over anything in Lightroom, you get a tooltip with the name of that tool or panel and a keyboard shortcut. So notice that I'm on the edit panel now, and as I hover, this little blue label comes up and it has the name and the keyboard shortcut. So the letter E to expand the panel. See that? Pretty cool. So you can either click on that or use the keyboard shortcut. And you're going to have a list of things that you can edit in Lightroom. I just want to be super clear on what a preset is before we even dive into them. I'm just going to click on the light panel to expand the light panel, and surprise, surprise, that light panel will help you control the lighting of your scene. In other words, how bright or how dark it is, the photo. And all a preset really is how, like, where a particular slider is set to. So if I were to drag a slider to the left on the exposure slider to the left, I would make the scene darker. I could save this as a preset, and all the preset is doing is remember where a particular slider is. So let me just do that really quickly. I'm going to go into presets, and I'm going to click on this 3-dot icon and click on create preset, and I'm just going to call it darker, because this is going to make the photo darker. Save.
There isn't any particular reason why you say scene instead of
Yeah,
photo?
I was just going to say that, scene, because I'm so used to working with composites, and in my mind a composite is a scene, because when I learned compositing, I was learning a lot from like matte painters, or people who put images together to create like backgrounds for movies and stuff like that. So that's compositing. So that's a scene. So I started using that word a lot. Scene.
It might be interesting to know if anyone in the chat used the word scene, or what is your what is your keyword for your artwork? I use Canvas a lot. On artwork, and which app do you work more? Probably that's a good way of gauge how many people do more composite and how many more photographer. Let us know if you're a photographer, if you're a designer, and which is your favorite app between Lightroom and Photoshop, and what else? How do you call your working space? My canvas is scene.
Well, yeah. I mean, in reality, it's a photo.
In reality, it's a photo.
It's a photo, but I keep saying scene because I'm always thinking about compositing.
We like to make up words. I mean, I do it very often.
That is true. But I was just working on compositing in the DCC, so I have compositing in mind.
So we have a question from Kevin asking if both versions have the same effects and actions.
They both have the same effects, and they both have the same presets. Actions are in Photoshop, unless you're using that word meaning like things that you can do. But yeah, so you can pretty much do the same thing on in reality, you can do the same thing on all three in terms of adjusting sliders, because Lightroom is built on the Camera Raw engine, which is the Photoshop plugin. There's a filter for it now. There wasn't a filter before. It was just a way of editing raw images in Photoshop, and it then was added into the filter menu.
Which I think it was super useful.
Yeah, I love it. I use it almost on everything. But anyway, that particular engine was the base for Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. So in terms of editing the photo, they work pretty much the same. Anyway, so I dragged the exposure slider to the left, and then I created a preset by the way, by clicking on this presets button here at the bottom. And notice now that here at the very bottom, I have user presets, and there's only one called darker, right? So then if I hold, I think is it Shift O? Yeah, actually it's not Shift O. Is it Shift O? Shift R actually. Shift R. See, I don't always remember the keyboard shortcuts. I'm still thinking Photoshop. If you hold Shift R, you can reset your photo back to its original setting, which means that you remove any of the adjustments that you applied. Essentially, all the sliders go back to 0. But if I go into my presets and click on darker, notice what happens. The exposure slider goes back into that point where I set it to. So a preset is a way of presetting a slider. That's it. That's all it is. It's just where's that slider going to go. So when you either buy, download, or use one of the presets that come built into Lightroom, when you apply it to a photo, different photo, you might necessarily get the same effect because the original photo that you're using is different. So if I, for example, click on this photo here and select darker, it doesn't necessarily look the same or similar to that one because it's got a different lighting, different colors, etc. So it doesn't necessarily, quote unquote, work on all the images. If I wanted to make it work on this image, I would have to adjust it. So that right there is just the key of creating presets. All it is adjusting a slider to a certain position and just saving that position, saving that preset location.
So we have a little question from Ted that says, how can I tell if I'm working with the Classic or with Lightroom?
Look at, and I don't know if it's the same on the Mac. You might want to open up your Lightroom and see. But on the PC, if you look on the top left, you'll see the Lightroom name. If it has Classic after that, then you know you're in Classic. If it doesn't, then you're in the regular one. And the Mac is on the top left as well. It says Adobe Lightroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
It says Adobe Lightroom.
Also, if you look at the logo on the logo for Lightroom, the web-based version is like a lime green or like a blue-green bright color, and then the one for the regular Lightroom is a muted blue, and also the one for Lightroom is more like the Lightroom. I gotta like differentiate better because I keep saying Lightroom over and over again. The one for the web-based version has rounded corners, and if you notice, Photoshop now has rounded corners. So I think that I'm right about this. If I'm not, somebody correct me in the chat. But I think that all the Adobe icons that have rounded corners means that they're web-based. So Photoshop is technically web-based because now you have the cloud documents. So you can save a document into the cloud and just open it from anywhere. So
I think it's probably got more to do if we have it on a tablet. Again, this not 100%, but my guess, because now Photoshop, that is also, we have Photoshop for iPad.
Mobile app, yeah.
Yeah, and Lightroom, we have Lightroom for mobile. So maybe that everything that is got the rounded corner is for mobile as well. But if someone from Adobe behind the scene can confirm this, those are just our assumptions. And if you know, perhaps let us know. And also, since I've interrupted you just a second, and I've seen Michelle, Akin, we've seen new people joining the chat. So thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to remind you real quick that right after, towards the end of this Lightroom preset session, we're going to give a feedback on Discord for your Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges. So submit, because Jesus is here and he's going to review them live during the stream.
That's right.
Let's keep going in Lightroom.
All right. So let's keep going in Lightroom. So the photo that I was going to work with is this one here, because I want to create sort of like a retro, grungy, old school effect, because we're working with this, I was going to say the word scene again, with this photo of these ruins. So we need to give it a grungy effect. So I remember the keyboard shortcut now, which is Shift-R to reset it back to the original. And if when you're working, you don't want to see the film strip down here, you can click on this icon right here. You see that? It says hide film strip. You can just click on that and it hides the film strip. So enable it and disable it. And as I'm working, I could, come into my presets and hover over them and see if I like any of these presets. And I'm not clicking on them, I'm just hovering over them. And notice that as I hover over them, you can see that the light panel, that the sliders move. So that's essentially what a preset is. Again, I just got to drive that point home, that it's not, because a lot of people think of filters like they think of Instagram filters. You're applying a filter. You're not necessarily doing that. You're just adjusting the sliders in a different way to get an effect. And
so it looks like that I want a coffee, apparently, because hi team, thank you so much, say that I was right. And we have the round corners for all the apps that are also available on mobile or tablet, besides Dimension. I think Dimension is the only one who break the rule.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I
Render
want a
corners
coffee.
indicate mobile versions of the apps and cloud documents. Oh, see? It says and cloud documents. So I was also right.
Okay. Thank you, team.
Yeah.
I tried.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that. Yeah. Anyway, so there you go. Round corners on logos means cloud documents and available on mobile versions.
Or tablet.
Yeah, Dimension is the one that breaks apart from that.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. So anyway, so the point that I was trying to make is that you can hover over the presets and you can see the sliders move to a different location, and that's what gives the effect to the photo. But in this case, I just want to create my own effect. And we're going to get started by using a profile. This is a raw image that I'm working with. And if I click on profile, you'll see that by default, I have the Adobe Color profile. Now, what is a profile? Actually, I have some really cool graphics that I just remember that are in here that I could show you. So I did a presentation at the Photo Plus conference in New York, where actually I was hanging out with Matt a lot, and basically I talked about raw images and profiles. So what is a raw image? So a raw image is basically data, right? Zeros, ones, binary, just a bunch of data. So that's all a raw file is. And to convert that data into the photo that we see, we need to Lightroom needs to figure out what that data represents, right? The demosaicing process. And what the profile does is it allows you to control how the colors will appear on screen, how they're rendered. So if you're working with that color of your jacket, like black, right? So what does that really mean on screen? So that's what the profile is doing, is representing those colors on screen for you, because all it is just the number, right? It's the number, that's it. But you need to see something on screen. So the profile tells Lightroom how to display that number on screen as a color. By default, you're gonna get Adobe Color as your profile. And if you, with your camera, with your raw photo, again, this will not work with a JPEG. It's all raw images I'm talking about at this moment. If you shoot a photo that is black, you set it to black and white, but you shoot it as a raw photo, then the default profile will be Adobe Monochrome. So either Adobe Color or Adobe Monochrome when you're working with raw images in Lightroom. And this is the same thing for Lightroom Classic, so it doesn't necessarily change.
So I'm here sitting and giggling because people are guessing if our stream is real or not. But then I guess you pointed out to my jacket, like, let's see if we can. Yeah, no, we're really here.
Yeah,
we're
we're really
table. We're on the same table. We can we're in the same space on the same desk. But yeah, Voodoo Val and team this past 2 days have done an amazing stream on Fresco, which you probably find on. I'm sure you'll find recorded on Behance.net/live and then illustration. And you'll see that they are probably one of the first stream that is intercontinental, because I think team is in Germany and Voodoo Val is in California. No, but we're here on the same desk, sitting next to each other and working on Adobe Lightroom preset, and we're going to be reviewing your work, your Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges soon on Discord. So make sure to submit your artwork on the current challenge channel into Discord, and we look forward to see your work. So submit, and don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just share it. It's inspiring for us, it's inspiring for everyone else that is watching, and you might have some good feedback from Jesús.
Yeah. So I just saw an interesting question by Alberto. It says, whenever Jesús has a stream like this one, makes me regret going to school. His way of teaching is above any teachers I ever had. First of all, thank you so much. It's very sweet and kind, and I really appreciate it. But school is very, very important. Don't ever regret going to school. Even if you don't have good teachers, you do have peers and a network that you can build. I can honestly say that my first job in the industry I got because of a friend that I met at school recommended me. And I had similar feelings about the school that I went to. I'm not gonna... Despite
winning
despite, okay, so... So what
fun fact.
What Kladi's talking about is that my university gave me a 40 under 40 award But I was a terrible student. I didn't really do that well, but the award was for my achievements after graduating.
It was useful.
But anyway, so I got a nice little award from my university, but I got it for non-academic reasons. The point that I'm trying to make, Alberto, is that don't regret going to school. It's a great opportunity to meet people and build your network. Like I said, my first job in the creative industry was because of a friend that I met at school. So I actually, sure, I wish I could have gone to a better, quote unquote, better school and learn more about this type of work, but in reality, just take advantage of what you have. So it's very important to stay in school and build your network at the very least.
And I think this is probably a great advice that you're giving everyone, because also is a way of practice and a way of learn how to make mistake and a way of you develop your thinking. And that's something that I think we do doing this streaming as well. Like we learn how to make mistake. And that's why I always say this is a safe space for everyone to learn and to learn how to use the apps, because the amazing part of those apps and the amazing busy Adobe live streams with so many streamers is that everyone tackles the app in a different way, and that's their thought process. So go to school and and watch the stream, and then you pretty much will be confident to go and start your own practice or apply for a job, and definitely if not, just create presets for your own photos.
Fun fact, I got a C in my one and only Photoshop class in school.
Can you imagine that?
I was never a good student. I was not a bad. I never caused problems. I just sometimes decided not to go to school.
Come on, let's keep working and create.
But you should go to school. Stay in school. I wish. I regret not being in school longer.
They're gonna take your award.
No, do not take. That's not advice. That's just telling you my mistakes. Do as I say, not as I do. But anyway, so we're gonna work with this image, and we were talking about color profiles. A color profile, again, it's a way of Lightroom taking the information, the data, and converting it into the pixels that you see on screen. And by default, we have Adobe Color because this photo was shot in color, but there's different ones that we can apply depending on the subject. For example, we have a landscape profile, so that will enhance the greens and blues. We have a portrait, which will try to protect skin tones or just not make them as saturated. The reds, Adobe Standard, which is the old profile that was default in Adobe apps. Adobe Color is a new version. So if you're working with like an older version of Lightroom, like Lightroom Classic, like an older version of Lightroom Classic, then the profile, the default profile will be Adobe Standard, and then Adobe Vivid, which just makes colors pop a little bit more. But usually, to be frank with you, I just stick with Adobe Color and don't really use any of the other ones unless I go into like some of the creative and artistic profiles. So everything I just talked about now only applies to raw images. But if I use one of the artistic profiles, like so anything below this line, really, this line right here, that will also work on a JPEG. So keep that in mind because it's just going to apply the color effect that you're going for with your image. And the reason that I came here was so that I could just look at the different color profiles and see if there's anything that might work. And in this case, I think, you know what? I think I'm gonna go for a black and white profile, and I'm just going to see which of these profiles works best for the look that I'm going for. And this is all subjective, right? You might like one that I don't like, or vice versa. So I think that for this one, I'm liking this one, number 12.
These are gorgeous photos, by the way, Mark. Mark keeps props for this photo. It's a very beautiful image. I've seen in the chat someone was mentioned it before. And also, I wanted to mention there was a little bit of confusion, and I think it was Noor or I've seen someone else in the chat. I definitely see Noor, and I think we have Van Damme designers as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I've seen you guys asking questions regarding the review. So we are going to be reviewing the work that you post on Discord right now, today, just about at 11 Pacific time. About 30 minutes before the end of the stream, we're going to be reviewing your work. So make sure that you post it by then into Discord, into the current challenge channel. And then afterward, Jesus is going to do also a feedback, not live, so you won't be able to see him, but it's going to be a voice feedback onto the Discord channel. At what time?
It's at 2:30 p.m. Pacific. It will be live, but not on... It'll be live on Discord, not on Adobe Live.
So there are two different reviews. I've seen there was a little bit of confusion, and Van Damme. Hopefully this clarifies, and everyone else that was asking, hope this clarify. We have one review starting about 11 here with us live. We're gonna pick up your work and look at each single one of them that you post on the current challenge channel, and then afterwards at 2:30. At 2:30 Pacific time, he's gonna review it voice. Just on Discord.
Yep. Awesome. So I decided to go for this profile B&W number 12. So I'm going to click on it, and you can see that I can increase or decrease the amount of that effect. But I'm just going to leave it right in the center at 100. By the way, if you want to reset a slider in Lightroom, you can just double click on the actual slider to reset it. Then I'm going to go into back. And this is something very important. When you adjust a profile, you don't change any of the slider positions. Notice that all my sliders in the light panel are still at 0. I'll click on the color panel, and I haven't moved these. If I make an adjustment and double click on it to reset it, you'll notice that they're in the default position. So applying a profile does not change the slider. So it's just a way of helping you get started without actually adjusting any of these sliders. So I always try to use a profile, you always use a profile if you're working with a raw photo. It'll be Adobe Color if you're working on the newest version of Lightroom and it's a color photo. But I will switch the profile if I'm trying to apply an effect. That way I can get started with it, and it helps me keep a cohesive look when I apply a preset to different photos, but raw photos.
Should we show them the super cool shortcut to reset all the little sliders with option? Do I know something that Jesús Ramirez doesn't know?
Oh, yeah.
No, it's impossible.
So wait, you're talking about holding. So yeah. So if you make adjustments to,
I love shortcut, guys. So I really need to make sure that went through.
So you make an adjustment to an image, and this is a terrible adjustment. This is why we're going to reset it. If you hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, the label for the panel will change to reset and then the name of the panel. So in this case, reset light, and you can click on that and it just resets everything. So Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac.
So instead of going on each one of the little slider, you just reset the entire slider. And also, I've seen that we were asking if we have to use, I think, Salaudin, I hope I pronounce your name right, was asking if we have to use only your image, the one that you shared as a starter file for the DCC?
As I mentioned in the stream, you can use mine to practice, but if you want to take a selfie or use a photo that you have in your library, photo library, then you can certainly use that as well. Use whatever foreground and background you want. The reason that we provide a file is so that you can have something to work with and follow along, and you can submit that if you like. You can make changes and adjust it any way that you like, but you're obviously welcome to use whatever photo that you like.
It'd be nice to see everyone's faces. We put our faces out all the time, so if you use your selfie, it will be actually very fun to get to know you better.
Yep. But anyway, so we set the profile. Now that we set the profile, I'm gonna work with the lighting of this scene. And again, like I mentioned earlier, when if you adjust a slider, dragging to the left or reduce, right? So I'm dragging to the left, and this is reducing light in this case, or increasing light. Exposure is just overall light, like the entire light in the scene. If I drag it all the way to the left, it's basically a black image. If I drag it all the way to the right, it's basically a white image. Contrast makes darker pixels darker, brighter pixels brighter. Highlights controls the highlights of the image. So this is actually the one that I'm going to use for this example, because notice that there's a highlight right here, and I know that there's some detail in there. I can sort of see it. But if I drag the highlights to the left, notice how I'm bringing in that detail. And this is the cool thing about using a raw photo, that there's a lot of hidden detail that you can bring out. If I was working with a JPEG, the compression of the JPEG might just make that part of the column completely white, and it wouldn't necessarily have that detail that you can bring out. So that is a huge advantage of using a raw photo. So once again, I want to look at the overall image when I make this adjustment, just because that particular break looks good doesn't mean the rest of the image will. So I want to look at the entire image as I make my adjustments. So I'm just going to drag that to the left and right about there. Actually, pretty much where I had it before. So I guess I did a good job when I zoomed in. It looks good to my eye. And what I'm going to do now is adjust the shadows. So I can bring the shadows up so that I could see the detail in the shadows. But in this case, I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to reset it by double clicking on the slider and then dragging the shadow slider to the left. I actually want to hide a lot of the columns in the background. And I could adjust the whites, which are the brightest points of the image, and the blacks are the darkest points of the image. And again, I'm going to just make those darker. So I want to create this grungy, old school looking photo. And that's what those effects look like. I can click.
So Tim has a question about what if you don't have a fancy DSLR? Can you still take raw photo?
You can take raw photos if you have a well, it depends on I don't know. I don't remember the specific versions of the iPhone, but a newer iPhone will certainly do that. A newer Android phone will certainly do that. I don't recall how, what all the versions are, but with Lightroom camera on your phone, you can shoot a raw photo from your phone. So yeah, Lightroom Mobile.
We use Lightroom Mobile all the time. I mean, I travel so much. I'm always hopping between Europe and America and all over actually, and I'm always like, every time that I'm on the plane, that's when I actually take time to edit my photo on my mobile, and that's why I always make sure that I have a charger so I can hook up my phone, because otherwise I will destroy my battery just on Lightroom. I think it's amazing, and that's how I create all my Instagram posts. Lightroom, I don't like to use the preset, the filters that are there, because that's how you create a filter. By setting different preset, you can actually create your own filter, and that's what I do. I like to have a certain mood to the image, and that's probably something that you need to establish before you start editing, having a general mood, having an idea of how, what do you want to communicate, telling a story, because there is no right and wrong.
Right.
I mean, unless you completely delete an image or you turn everything, you cannot see anything anymore, or maybe your main subject is out of focus. That will probably be something that you don't want, or if you create some casts, overcast color. But I'm gonna let you keep going with the presets.
Cool. And I'm noticing that people in the chat are typing in what phones they have and whether or not they can shoot RAW. So maybe let us know in the chat if your phone can't do it, or even if it can. That way people can see the capabilities of the phones and which phone can shoot RAW and which phones cannot. Yeah. But I know that the newer, I'm pretty much 100% sure that all the newer iPhones and all the newer Androids can definitely shoot RAW with the Lightroom camera app from Adobe Lightroom. So
we have Claire giving us some useful information that you need to amend your setting to shoot RAW and JPEG. Otherwise, we have Hake, I think it's called, on the iPhone. And she used it directly into Lightroom. So yeah, there are different settings. So it might be that you have to go into the settings of your phone and then edit what sort of output you want.
Yep. Cool. So let's continue with this. And so I've made something that you guys might have not seen that I did. So let me go back. Actually, I'm going to do two things right now. So we were editing with the light panel, and we edited the lightness or the brightness of the image. And then I opened up the color panel. But notice that as I start opening up panels, things get really confusing. If you want to make things a little easier for you, you can click on this 3-dot icon and set single panel mode. And that way, when you open up a new panel, the previous panel closes up. So you're not scrolling through, 6 or 7 panels if you click on all the panels. So that's really useful, at least for me.
Very cool.
But anyway, so we were working with the light panel, and I'll close that and go into the color panel. And there's no color on this image, but if I click on this little icon here, the black and white mixer, I get these sliders that help me control the brightness of the original color. So if you remember, the columns were sort of like orange, yellowish. So I can control the brightness of those original colors by using these sliders. So it's really cool. And actually, I don't know if I should do this, but I kind of want to jump back in Photoshop because I just thought of a cool tip.
Let's jump back into Photoshop.
Because
and by the way, this is your Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge.
Yeah, so this is what I did for this Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. Added him to a new background. But anyway, actually...
And while he's figuring out his challenge, I remind you to join the challenge, and you can do so at the very top of the chat. If you are on behance.net/live, at the very top of the chat, you're gonna have a little link that says register for the creative challenge. And by registering to the creative challenge, you'll be able to click on a big button. I'm actually gonna jump to my screen real quick, just to show you where once you click on register to the challenge here, you can take the challenge. I'm going to press it so I can join the challenge as well. And after saying thank you for joining the challenge, you will be able to connect into Discord. After you connect into Discord, which is our community, is an international community where you'll find other designer, photographer, professional, students, and of course the Adobe Live team and our amazing mentor like Jesús, myself, Sam, team, and so many other streamers that join us to give you feedback by posting your current challenge into this little tab up here where it says current challenge. You post your photo. You can see so many people have done their pet portrait. That was challenge number 1 yesterday. We are going to start reviewing your challenge number 2 of today. So make sure that you keep posting at about 11, just a little bit about 11. Before 11, we're going to start reviewing live your work. So keep posting, and let's jump back into Sue's screen if we are ready to
Yeah, we're ready. I'm
go.
Just looking for the right photo where I can show this. I'm just looking for a photo. Okay, this one should work. It's got enough colors. Yeah, this one should work. So
we're gonna freestyle this one?
That's not
That's
a freestyle.
A little tip?
No, because I just wanted to show people how to do the same thing in Photoshop, because
okay.
they may want to do the same thing, and it's a trick that actually, you know what? I'm giving a lot of shout outs to Mark today. Like basically, Mark should have been here doing this, because actually I learned this trick from my good friend Mark Heaps. So if you create a black and white adjustment layer in Photoshop, you obviously make the image black and white, right? So you can do the same thing. You can adjust the colors of the sky. For example, the sky was blue, so I can make the blues in the original image darker, which makes the black and white image darker. But the trick that I wanted to show you, and this is what my good friend Mark Keeps came up with, or at the very least the first time I saw somebody do it, is to click on the drop down menu on the blending mode menu and change the blending mode to luminosity, and from here you could adjust the luminosity of specific colors. See that? See how I'm adjusting the luminosity of those specific colors? By changing the blending mode in the black and white adjustment layer. So by default, the black and white adjustment layer makes things black and white. But by changing the blending mode to luminosity, you bring back the color, and the only thing that these sliders control now is the luminosity of those specific colors. So that's a quick tip that I thought about when I was working on the other image. But anyway, so in the black and white mixer in Lightroom, this is very similar. So I'm adjusting the black and white colors of the original image, and of course it's all very subjective. You can decide how dark and how bright they should be, but I just wanted you to know that that option is hiding here. It's hiding in the next to the color menu. It's hiding right there. So by default it's not open, so you won't see that. And if you hover over it, it will read BNW Mixer. Click on that, it opens up, and you have all these extra options to edit your black and white photo. So it's a lot of cool control that you can get.
So Tim is asking luminosity or brightness?
Oh God, I don't know if I want to get into
That's
this.
That's a very fine line.
Well, no, it's I don't know if I want to get that technical. So I'm just gonna tell people to go into watch a video on my YouTube channel. I don't want to get into that.
And to subscribe, because we said he's almost gonna reach 1 million subscribers on the Photoshop training channel.
Yeah, Photoshop training channel. Yeah, it's that's a loaded question, Tim. Brightness. I don't know if you
Tim,
mean
you really went into dig into the deep geekness.
Yeah. So I have this video here titled "Enhance Colors with this insanely useful filter," where I talk about hue saturation brightness and hue saturation lightness. So I talk about all of that there, because there's actually a difference between luminosity and brightness, and we can talk about like.
Should we give it like a little bit of a hint?
I don't know if I want to geek out so much on this, but basically.
Team, you really put it on the spot.
All right, so
I think you better watch the video to discover more.
So basically, I mean, here, this is the way that I'm going to explain it. Basically, you can either make something like the value of brightness could either be like the actual like cold hard number, right? So we have, hue, saturation, and brightness, right? Brightness, like how bright a pixel actually is. But then we also have lightness or luminosity, which could be the perceived brightness of a pixel. And I know that sounds super geeky and super nerdy, and that's what I go into that video. And I think Tim this is the video here, enhanced colors.
And Tim has actually posted the video. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If you are on the Adobe Live chat, remember behance.net/live, just in case you're on the YouTube. Tim has posted the video that Jesús was referring to from his Photoshop channel, and you probably learned a more articulate way.
Yeah, not only more articulate, but I don't want to like deviate too far from.
Because we need to jump back into Lightroom.
Yeah, we need to jump back into Lightroom.
We need to save and apply our presets. So maybe we create a full preset and then we apply to something else.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
Because we have only 20 minutes before the actually starting to give you feedback on Discord. So
okay, yeah. So Tim said maybe I was referencing this video. I hope that because I might have. I don't know if you did this because I sometimes use the words interchangeably, even like a lot of people do, and like I mean I really shouldn't do that, but I do use the words interchangeably sometimes. But there is a difference. And if you want to know what the difference is, you can check out that video after the stream, of course. But you'll see that there's a difference between like the numerical value of like how bright something is and then the perceived brightness of something. So yeah, so check that out. Anyway, so
let's jump back into Lightroom.
So we adjusted the profile, we adjusted the lightness of the image, and we didn't really adjust the color, but we adjusted the brightness of the original colors, which then adjusted the way the image looks. Next, we can go into the effect panel, and the effect panel has a brand new super cool slider, which is there, the texture slider. By the way, that's what I was talking about earlier inside of Lightroom. If you hover over anything, you're gonna get useful information. For example, if you hover over any of the sliders, you'll get a video of what that slider does, the title of the slider or control, and then a description of what it does. So if you forget what something does, just hover over it. You'll get a cool tooltip description. But anyway, this was just added into Photoshop, I want to say less than a year ago. And maybe in the chat somebody knows exactly when. It was Photoshop night 2019, I think is when it was added. But if I click and drag on the texture slider, notice how it just makes the texture pop even more. So for something like this, I really want to get that fine detail, those textures in these columns. So I'm definitely going to drag that over to the right. Clarity is an older slider, but it does something very similar. It creates contrast on edge pixels, so it can make things pop. Usually you don't want to drag the clarity slider too far to the right on portraits because it just creates this really grungy effect that generally speaking doesn't look good on portraits, but if it's a grungy effect you're going for, then it's definitely a slider that you want to use. But anyway, so you can click and drag these accordingly till you get something that really makes your image pop. I want my image to pop here, and I also want to add a vignette. So I'm going to click and drag over to the left to make my image darker around the edges. Also, I think this is the first slider. This is the first slider that has a left pointing arrow to the right of it. You see this little arrow right here? Mm-hmm. It says show more options when you hover over it. If you click on that, you'll get extra options that apply to the current slider that you are working with. In this case is the vignette slider. One of the sliders that I can adjust is the highlights, so I can drag the highlights to the right, and it's not really noticeable in this case. Maybe if I make the vignette darker, it will be, but notice when highlights is set to 0, everything outside is pretty much completely black. But if I drag the highlights to the right, I'll make the highlights pop a bit more. So you may want to just add the vignette slider to the left just a tiny little bit and then make the highlights stand out so it's not completely black. Totally up to you.
Yeah, vignette is some people like for a period of time I completely disliked vignettes, so I wouldn't use it ever. Now I kind of reintroduce it a little bit, but I try to feather them.
Yep.
And I think it's up to your taste. Let us know if you like or dislike vignette. What is the reason why you say you add a vignette to an image?
Yeah, let us know in the chat why you like it or why
and
you
I was
don't.
actually asking you.
Oh, me? Oh, okay.
In the chat.
I like it because it makes you focus on something on the image, and then especially in this case, what I have in mind when I started this project is, maybe we're like in some sort of ruins, and maybe I'm trying to create like an old photo effect type of grunginess, so I really want the burned edges. So that's what I had in mind, and that's what I'm trying to go for.
Well, let us know if you like using a vignette and why if you use it, or why you don't use it if you don't.
Yeah. And also, another little menu that a lot of people miss in Lightroom is this one right here. Notice that little square is almost hiding here on the right. You may miss it. So right there, next to the word effects, you have the split toning. If you click on that, you can add a color to either the shadows or the highlights. So for example, if I click on the shadows, by clicking on the shadows square here, notice right now that there's like a red line going through it. It just says that there's no color. It's just going to be whatever color you see on screen. But if I click and drag this point, notice now that I can make the shadows a particular shade. So I can just give it maybe like a hint of yellow, maybe make it a little bit of a sepia tone effect, totally up to you. So maybe I'll do that in this case, just add a hint of color. And you can do the same thing with the highlights. I don't really want any color on the highlights, but I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So the highlights, I can click on this button and click and drag to the left, and notice how it just makes those highlights that particular color. So you can create some really interesting effects using the split toning. Again, you're applying colors to the shadows and applying colors to the highlights. Just make sure that you click on the appropriate square when you're dragging. You don't necessarily need to click on the square. You can just click on the point, but sometimes it's just easier to see, because maybe if you have this point here on the left and then this one on the right, it might get confusing. So I like to just click on the square that I'm going to change so it highlights the point, and then I can drag the appropriate point where it needs to go. But that's one thing. Actually, another thing I should mention is I'm just going to bump this up to blue because it's easier to see. But then we have this slider that controls basically what are shadows, right? So the further I drag to the right, then shadows are makes the effect more subtle, and to the left it makes it more intense.
So we'll say that we'll make the shadow darker towards the black in order to apply a
stronger effect. A stronger effect. Thank you. I don't know how
make it lighter. It's been talking for way too long.
I've been talking for way too long.
And also, I'm just gonna pause you a second as well, because we were asking about the vignette, and I've definitely seen Valdeir Leonardo saying that he does use it and he likes it, but of course use it with moderation. And then same thing for Michelle. You're saying that you do like a subtle vignette, but depending on the photo. And that's, Michelle, is a very good point, because depends on if you're actually focusing on one subject, or you really want to dramatize what is in the center of the photo and you want to guide your eyes straight to perceive what is in the middle of the image, then perfect. But if you have, for example, a photo like a family portrait, you really do not want to use a very intense vignette, and maybe like, unless you want to hide those family siblings that you don't want in the picture, maybe something that you can do for fun with your brother or sisters, or for a school portrait or something like that. But otherwise, you're very right, Michelle, you need to be very careful depending on the image that you're using. And Ted is asking a very interesting question. So Ted is asking that he said that he loves vignette, and he says that if we can change the color of the vignette. Very, very good question, Ted.
So short answer is yes. Long answer is you have to play around with
Gotta put some work into it.
So, I mean, the vignette, if you drag to the left, it makes it darker, right? If you drag to the right, it makes it brighter. So you can make it, that's changing the color from black to white. But maybe if you wanted it a different color, what you can do is you could create a local adjustment, like the radial adjustment, by clicking on the circle here, and then click and drag a circle. And then from this circle, if I adjust the exposure, it makes it darker in the inside. So I would have to click on the invert checkbox to make sure that the effect is in the outside. And then, actually, I was going to do something, but if you, I want to see if it works by adding this color effect.
We're going to try learning by error.
I was just freestyling this and it worked, thank God. So, and then you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's this color checkbox that you can just like click on, and it enables it, and then you can click and drag and apply a color. So you could do it that way. So that's basically applying a color vignette. So I hope that...
so this local adjustment.
Yeah, it's using a local adjustment. Yeah. So I used the radio filter, made a circle. By the way, if you press the O key on the keyboard, you can switch the different overlays. So I wasn't seeing anything there. If I press O again, I can actually see the point. So I can click and drag it and place it somewhere else. And I could just, you know, adjust my vignette. And if you want to control like how sharp or blurry the edges are, you can adjust the feather. So see that? No feather, sharp edge, or feather at 100%, super blurry edge. So totally up to you what you want to do. But that's how you would create, add a color to the vignette. It's not really a vignette. You have to use a local adjustment and make it look like a vignette, and then apply the color with this particular option there.
And also Sharon is asking, is there another way to, is this another way, so this effect that you're using right now is a way to create a duotone? Because usually with duotone, I personally create duotones into Photoshop, going to a color mode.
Well, I mean, that's what that's basically what we were just doing with the split toning. Yeah. So yeah. Right here.
Sharon, if you refer to, if your question was referring to the split toning, the answer will be yes. That's how you create a duotone, especially if you bring the saturation of the color down and you just leave the shadows and one color. That's how you can apply one color. Would you want to perhaps give like a live demonstration?
I mean, it's basically what we just, you're talking about the duotone, right?
Yes, yeah. Duotone.
So it's basically what we were just talking about. So, and I think Tim might have mentioned something about making the shadows blue and the highlights yellow, I think he said. So let's try that. So like with the shadows, I can select that and just make them blue, you know, find the right blue, and then the highlights, and I'll make these yellow. And you create nice. You know, like the dual tone effect. Obviously, you would have to fine tune it more, but I think that that's the thing that I'm sorry, who was the person?
Sharon.
Sharon asked, yeah. And also what Tim suggested above in the chat as well.
And you can see how much it changed the mood. So we went from something that it looked like a ruin in a forest into something that it could be found in the deep sea.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Like it's almost like as if you have the reflection of the sun coming through the water, and it gives you, Tim, that's a really, really cool
suggestion.
Color combination.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we just keep it and we'll just work with this. And I can just adjust it accordingly, and that'll be our effect, right? Because we're creating a preset anyway, so it could be whatever we want. So let's just work with this. I like it. And next we have the detail panel. And actually, they did a really smart job. Adobe did a really smart thing with the sharpening panel. First of all, when you are sharpening an image, you want to zoom in to the one-to-one view. You can just click in the canvas to zoom in, or you can just click on this one-to-one little label here in the bottom right, and it zooms into the one-to-one view. When you adjust the sharpening, you want to be in that view because any other view could be misleading, and this view really lets you see what is going on. Also, if you hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, as you're dragging that slider, you'll get a black and white image. It removes the color so you can better see the effect that you're applying. So that just could help you really, really see what areas are being sharpened. Also, the reason that I said that this was a really smart slider is because notice that they meaning Adobe, added a red overlay here on the right. That means that you usually don't want to like over sharpen an image. So the slider is telling you, if you start dragging it to the red areas, it's warning you, like this might be a little too much, be careful. So I never drag the slider past maybe the 100% point, because after that, I'm in that red area. And when I get into that red area, I really start bringing out the noise and the imperfections of the photos, and you don't want to do that. So make sure that you add sharpening accordingly. Another thing that you should look at is look at the overall image, right? And where is this effect being applied? It's being applied to the entire image. So right now the entire image is getting this effect. But how can I change it so that it doesn't affect everything, right? Because I don't want the blurry background to be sharpened, right? Because it's blurry, it shouldn't be in focus. So I can click on the left pointing arrow to show me the extra options, and I have this masking slider. And again, if I drag it to the right, you really can't see what's going on. But if I use that same keyboard shortcut, Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click and drag to the right, you can see now that I have a mask. And this mask is just like Photoshop, right? When you first start out, when you first create a mask in Photoshop, it's completely white. White reveals, black conceals. In Photoshop, you can paint with black to selectively decide what to hide. We don't have a brush that we can paint on here, but we have the slider. And if I drag to the right, Lightroom will try to find the edges of the image, and it will try to localize that sharpening effect to those edges. So
That's
further,
so cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So the further that I drag to the right, the more it localizes to those edges. So you can fine tune your image and decide where you want the effect to be applied. So in this case, I'm gonna go pretty far to the right because I don't want those back columns to be affected so much. So I think that if I go to maybe about this point, it will be okay. And again, I can zoom in to see how that effect has affected my image. So I can click on this icon. Well, actually, if I click on this icon, you'll see the original. So the original and the edited version. But I could reset the sharpening, and you can see the effect that I'm applying there. It's very subtle, but I think it works. So let me go into fit image so we can see the entire image, and I think you're gonna say something.
Yes, I was just waiting until you finished to finalize your sharpening, and I wanted to say that we are literally about less than 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes before starting our feedback. So make sure that you submit your Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge on Discord. You have our current challenge channel, and submit because we are gonna be having a feedback live here with Jesus, which is also done the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge today. Today's challenge was curves.
Curves, yes.
Curves, and how to match the foreground image and the background image into a composite to make sure that they look realistic and they look part of the same scene, which is a key word for today. We use the word scene a lot because we both do a lot of composite, especially Jesus. And remember, this is 2-day challenge number 2, and we're gonna be reviewing in just 10 minutes. So make sure that you submit it. If you've not done, if it's not a final one, even better. Maybe you get expired. No, hopefully not. We get inspired.
Nobody needs to get expired right now.
You get inspired by Jesus' feedback to improve it. So even if it's a work in progress, just feel free to share it with us. We love to be inspired as well by your work. And remember, this is a safe space for beginner and an exciting safe space for professional as well in order to build further pieces for your portfolio. So I personally look forward to see your work. I'm sure Jesus is as well. And we have literally now less than 10 minutes before we start. So let's finish up today. And hopefully we're going to have a few minutes to wrap up the end of the day as well. But yeah, if you want to...
Yeah, and by the way, guys, today I'm just going through like all the different panels and what they do. I'm really introducing Lightroom to you guys, and then we're going to create presets from this look. But tomorrow we're going to dive in more into like specific looks and things like that. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had a base in case you didn't understand or hadn't worked with Lightroom in the past. So we are going to get to more preset stuff today, but even more so tomorrow once we know how the application works. But anyway, so actually one thing that I saw in the chat that is really important, thank you so much, Tim, for making that comment. Tim said 1:1 refers to the pixel ratio, not the aspect ratio. So 1 virtual pixel equals 1 physical pixel displayed, 1 physical display pixel. So yeah, so it just means that you're looking at, it's basically like right-clicking on Photoshop with the zoom tool and selecting 100%. You're gonna see like the 1:1 pixel ratio. So it's not like it's not a square, you know, like you would do like when you're cropping like a 1:1. So yeah, thank you for that comment, Tim.
Are we gonna diving into Lightroom before reviewing the challenge? I think you have about 5 minutes now.
Yeah, cool. So 5 minutes to work on this, and then the challenge.
Yes, we're gonna have 5 more minutes to perhaps save the challenge, to save the presets, or
we'll have plenty of time.
Perfect.
So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the optics panel and remove chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration is the magenta or green edge halos that you get on photos sometimes. So with that button, you can just click on it and they get removed. And you can enable the lens correction. In this case, I don't necessarily like how my image is adjusted with the lens correction. It basically helps remove any distortions or vignetting and things like that that the lens creates. When you take the photo, if you're shooting with a raw photo, the camera knows what lens you're using, and Lightroom will know what lens that is in most cases, and you can remove any lens distortion or lens vignetting. But in this case, I don't need it, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. And we have a really fun tool that we're going to show off with a different photo, but this tool helps you straighten lines, straighten horizons. It helps you remove some perspective issues, and you can select auto upright to auto upright the image. But in this case, it's really not making that huge of a difference. You can see how it just rotates the image a little bit. So maybe we can apply that, and it'll look okay. So I've gone ahead and just made all these changes to my photo. Actually, I forgot one that I wanted to apply, which is in the effects panel. And I wanted to add a little
While you dig that out, I want to say hi to everyone that is joining us still. We have Filipa, we have Mahadi, and we have Julia. Our friend Julia Masalska is here.
Hey, Julia. How's it going?
Hi, Julia. And Tim is like, what? Time is going so fast. Yeah, it's almost time for
almost
review and feedback.
Yeah.
So post your work on Discord. Post your challenges.
So awesome. So now this is going to be, how much time do we have? Like
we have like 3 minutes.
3 minutes? 4 minutes? Okay, cool.
Maybe I can give you 5 minutes.
No, we'll be okay. So I'm going to click on the presets panel here, and I'm going to go into the 3-dot icon and create our preset. And we'll just call it Cool Adobe Live Preset. And the important thing that to do here is to decide what you're going to save in your preset. Do I want to save the color profile? Yes, I do. I do want to save the color profile because I set it to a specific starting point color profile, and I want all the presets that I use or all the photos that I apply this preset to have that same starting point. Do I want to add tools? We didn't really use any tools. We didn't use a linear gradient or a radial gradient, so there's no need to check that box. Do we want to adjust the light? Save the light, rather. And yes, I do want to save the light. Which lighting effects? All of them. I want all of them to be the same. Same thing for color, same thing for effects. The point is that I wanted to show you that when you click on these arrows, you can actually see all the different sliders, all the different controls, and you can check them if you want to save them in your preset. The one that I will uncheck is the optics. And also, I think I should probably, just the optics. Yeah, the optics is the one that I will disable because I don't really want to apply any chromatic aberration or anything like that. Actually, you know what? I do want to do that. Sorry about that. The only one I don't want to apply is geometry. And I don't want to apply the geometry because I applied an auto-guided upright distortion to the photo, and that may not be the best option for all my photos. So I'm just going to leave that off. So all the adjustments that I made are going to be saved into this preset except for one. And when I click on save, you'll notice that under user presets, I have my cool Adobe Live preset. So now if I go into the photos, I can look at other photos that I have, and there's another photo from that same place. I can double click on that to open it. And if I click on the edit panel and click on the presets panel here, you'll see that under user presets, I have my Adobe Live preset, so I can apply it. And it looks virtually the same. It's not 100% the same because, again, what I mentioned when we started the stream is that if you're working with a different lighting condition, you may have to make a few adjustments. So,
but you saved the majority of the work.
Yeah, but I saved a bunch of time, so I can just adjust the lightness of the image, maybe even the exposure in this case, and you can just decide what adjustments you're going to need to make to this image so that you can have basically the same effect. So,
also, we have Pilar asking, which format would you save the photo in? A TIFF, JPEG? From Lightroom. So how would you?
First of all, I'll answer that question by just saying this long answer. So first of all, right now when I'm working in Lightroom, notice that I haven't been saving, but Lightroom is saving as I go. So you don't need to save in Lightroom with your working file. If you're done with this image and you want to export it, then you can export it by clicking on this icon here, and you can export it as a JPEG, original, whatever you like. And the file type will really depend on what the purpose for this file is. Usually when you're exporting, you're ready to show it to the world, so it will probably be a JPEG. You're probably going to email it to somebody, post it on your website, post it on social media. So for all those things, JPEG would probably be the best choice. Remember, this file is uploaded to the cloud, so you're not really saving it into your computer. I mean, technically you are, but don't think about it that way. It's already in the cloud, and I could open it up in my phone. So if I were to open up my Lightroom mobile app now, I could continue editing this photo from this same exact point. I could also go into the web version of Lightroom that I showed you in the beginning of the stream and start editing this file from this point. So I guess to answer your question is, you don't need to save it, you need to export it. But I hope that that's really what you were asking.
Yeah, and that's the thing what you were explaining here, and the way the Lightroom works really shows how we speed up our workflow and how we work on the go. This is exactly what we mean. We jump from one app to the other, from the laptop to the web to the mobile, and we can keep working wherever we're going. If you're on a train, if you're on a plane, if you're just simply sitting down, you don't have your desktop and you have some more photo editing to do, or you just want to create some preset, you can do that on the go with Lightroom app for mobile.
That's right.
So I think we're going to jump into Discord right now. Is a good time for a break, or you want to show how to export it first?
To export is...
Let's show how to export it.
First of all, the preset's already saved, so there it is. So we have our preset. And to export it, you would just click on this button, click on export, and then you can have your settings, right? A JPEG, TIFF, DNG. DNG is a digital negative, which is basically like a raw version, an Adobe created raw file type of thing, and original plus settings. So in this case, if we wanted to save it as a JPEG, we could. We can select a small or full size in terms of dimension. In most cases, you probably just want to go to custom and then just type in the number of pixels you want on the long side and the quality, so how much JPEG compression you have, and you have more options if you need to. But when you're done, you can just click on export photo, and Lightroom will export it onto your computer, and from your computer you could save it, like I said, to social media, your website, email it, whatever you want to do with it.
Okay, so looks like it's time for our review and feedback. I'm gonna quickly switch to my machine here, and here it is. So here, if you are not already joined the challenge, I wanna direct you into behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. You'll be able to see Mr. Jesús Ramirez here every morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time, giving you some tricks and sharing some techniques and learn how to use Photoshop. Again, as I said all the time, and I like to repeat it over and over again, this is a safe space for everyone. Beginners can practice and get your hand dirty with Photoshop for the first time, and professional can build new portfolio pieces. If you do not have Photoshop yet, you can download it here in the same super useful landing page for the challenges, simply by scrolling down and get Adobe Photoshop and click on download Photoshop here. In order to complete the challenge, you need to have Photoshop. And also here, every day you're gonna have a card that gets unveiled. Oops, I just change screen. I went on your Instagram. I'm just stalking you. So you can actually, yes, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to refit my screen because it was very zoomed in. Every day you can see we have a different challenge. Today we're challenge number 2, curves and adjustment, where Jesús were teaching us and giving us some tips in order to match the foreground and the background in order to create a realistic composite. You can use is file here by getting started. If you missed the video, don't you worry. You can watch it again, and you can watch any other video here by clicking on the watch video button. And if one challenge is not enough, you have so many challenges to practice with here. So I think last week was mine, just right here from the 2nd to the 13th of March. I've created some composite and a full marketing campaign into Photoshop. And we have before Kathleen, and we have Voodoo Val. So you can get yourself busy for a very long time. But as I say, today is challenge number 2, and we're gonna go into Discord to review it. If you've not joined Discord yet, make sure that you click here on the community chat. So first of all, you go on behance.net/challenge slash I couldn't say the word slash Photoshop, and make sure that you click here on our community chat in order to jump into Discord. And here we are today into our creative challenge, current challenge. I'm gonna zoom in to make sure that you are into the right feedback challenge here. And I'm gonna scroll up to start from today's challenge. Before we do that though, I've actually spotted right before challenge number 1, someone has created a distorted photo of Mr. Meow, which I thought, sorry, as you guys probably know, I'm a big fan of animals in general, especially cats and Mr. Meow. And I thought this was a very, very cool distortion here. So let's get started into today's challenge. And we are gonna have, first one, we're gonna review part Patel. So do you want to start to have a little bit more of a feedback here?
I'm gonna have to look in your
Yes.
Actually, maybe I could look at mine. Actually, no, it'll be easier if I look at
yours. Let's look at one screen.
All right, so I'll look at the one on the screen. I think it might be easier. But yeah, so they did a really good job. They followed the example. So just to clarify as to what we did today, in case you missed it. If you missed it, check it out. There's a recording. I'm sure Tim or somebody will post a link to it in the chat. But what we did is work with a foreground element and a background element that had different color temperatures, right? So the foreground was cold and the background was warm in terms of the temperature. And what we did is we used the curves adjustment layer to match the temperature to make it seem like they were in the same scene. And so what this person did is they took the background. Actually, somebody in the comment mentioned that if it would look better with the background flipped. So yeah, maybe not. I guess the reason they flipped it is because that bright highlight was to the right of them, and they wanted that light to make it seem like it was hitting his face. But the reason that in my mind, when I was creating the composite, I didn't do it that way is because the light was behind them anyway, so it wouldn't necessarily light up the front side of his face. So I kind of figured it would still look cool on the other side. But anyway, it is what it is. We don't know what's in front of the guy, so maybe there is another light in front of him. But the point is that they did a good job. The one thing that I mentioned in the stream that I don't think that they did was that you needed to blur the background in this case. It wasn't a stylistic choice. It was more of I'm working with what I have type of thing. Because if you, I don't think you can zoom in that image any further, but actually, oh yeah, you can. So if you zoom in, you can see that on his shoulders and in the back of his, no, not the back of his neck, the side of his neck, and that part is actually blurry. You can actually see the lines of his suit being blurred out.
You can see her on the cheek as well.
Yeah, and his cheek and his ear, all that is blurry. So that means that it was shot with a shallow depth of field. So only parts of him are in focus. But basically anything that's like further back behind his ears essentially is out of focus. So the background has to match that in order to make a quote-unquote realistic composite. So I was forced to blur the background in the composite. So I would suggest that if you're using the same foreground and the same background and you want to make it quote-unquote realistic, then you will have to match that. You have to look for these little tiny details.
And zoom in. I think that's something that perhaps is a little bit like underrated, the importance of zooming in. I remember when I was doing one of my first course in design, I was at Shillington, and my lecturer, Orla McGrath, I don't know if you're watching, ever watch this, but I'm going to give you a shot on this. She always repeated over again, zoom in. You know, you never, that's how you perhaps make a distinction between a professional and non-professional work, because professional really look for these details. You don't have to be lazy in this sense, because that will make the difference. All the little fine tunings that you do when you are completely zoom in will make a very, very big difference into your output. So as Jesús says, in order to have a professional, realistic outlook, make sure that you zoom in to be able to catch this blurriness. And you can see it here on his hair as well. So very well done on your photo. Very well done with matching the temperature. I think that you've done a great job, Patel, here. Although, as Jesús say, maybe match the blurriness of the background in order to have a full match.
I'm laughing because they're in the chat. Akin wrote, Professor Kladi with those glasses, cool. And Julia wrote, right? I always thought Kladi looks like a teacher.
Yes. The other day when I was doing my stream, I was named Kladi MacGyver or something like that, MacKladi, because I love my love for shortcuts as much as MacGyver did. I don't remember what he did, but he did create it. He crafted.
You mean the TV show?
The TV show, of course. I used to watch it all the time.
Oh my God. We're dating ourselves.
When I was in school. But yeah, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I couldn't find my contact lenses, so I was forced to wear my glasses. So as you can see, when I don't have to read your chat, or when I can read the chat from the computer, I don't have to wear them. But now I need to wear them so I can see your comments as well. But let's go back into our review. If you have not posted your work, make sure that you post it here on the current challenge channel, because we are reviewing it live with Jesús that was this morning actually giving you and unveiling this challenge number 2. But let's go into Claire.
Actually, the chat is talking about Adobe Max Europe, which will be in Lisbon, Portugal, hopefully in June.
Yes, correct. I think it falls on my birthday as well.
Oh, so, yeah, it's on Kladi's birthday. Yes. Yeah, June 14th.
If everything goes forward, of course, those are uncertain times for everyone, but we keep our finger crossed that, everything goes well for everyone in the world, and we can keep our fun and our excitement with our creating events. I will also be a speaker for a graphic design session and for a lab, in particular Photoshop and also InDesign. I think Jesús is bringing up the page. I can see him working there. But anyway, let's keep working on the, I think he found it here. Do you want me to switch to your screen real quick?
Yeah, so this is the list of, so I am in the Adobe Max Europe. It's here, and let me just close this. It'll be in June 15th and 16th, hopefully. And if you click on sessions, you'll see the list of speakers, and I'm not really sure where Kladi is, but she's in one of these.
I should be into the graphic design. I don't know.
I saw your photo here the other day. Here, graphic design. There you are, Kladi. Kladi
yeah,
from
I know it's a much
Printmysoul.
prettier photo, but that's me. But yeah, so let's jump back into our review. If you are perhaps in Europe, will be and if everything goes well, and hopefully everything will be better in a very short time. We hope so for everyone. But yeah, there is going to be this amazing event in Lisbon, which is going to be the very first Adobe Max in Europe, which is Adobe Max 2020. And me and Jesús are going to be there. So if you want to meet us and ask finally some question in person, besides in the chat, we'll be happy to answer all your questions. Otherwise, keep them questions coming into the behance.net/live chat.
I'll be working with the Russell Brown event, so that's where you'll find me if you're in Lisbon.
Perfect. But let's go back into our challenges. Hopefully by now you have more time to submit your challenges, and here we are reviewing Claire artwork. Let me double check to make sure. Yes, that's Claire.
So, okay, so see, Claire did what I suggested in blurring the background. One thing that Claire did that I don't know if it works for this photo is Claire used the gallery, the blur gallery filter, and used the, oh my God, I just blank on the name, but the default setting. But the point is that she tried to add the bokeh effect without adding too much of the blur, so it created those really bright spots in the background. I mentioned during my stream that wasn't necessarily the best look for my image, but if she likes it and is what she wants, then who am I to say no? But that's why she has those bright highlights in the background, because of that bokeh slider was pushed a little too far to the right, in my opinion. But if it's the look that she wants, it's the look that she wants.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing was the temperature, making the scene realistic. And you can tell that the guy is actually in the room, in the corridor. I think you, Claire, you've done a very good job in terms of creating a realistic composite.
Right.
Now, I see a question from Ted saying that he had an issue with downloading the background. I don't know. It should be everything in the same folder, but I think while we review, Jesús can put the background into Discord. Can you do that for us, please? I can
do that, yeah. But I downloaded the file myself, and it's here, and it's exactly what I use. I opened it on, so make sure that you...
so I think that you see just one photo because it's a Photoshop file. I just saw it right now.
Yeah, so it's a Photoshop file.
So it's a Photoshop file. Let's go... using the wrong control here. If we go into our...
This is what it should look like if you or maybe you can do it on your computer.
Yes. So you'll see only one image, which is the portrait, because it's a Photoshop file. So all we have to do is, of course, download it. And once you'll be able to open the file, let me download it with as you can see, I have an Italian Dropbox because it says carica, which means download, of course. And once you've downloaded, of course, once you downloaded your file and open it into Photoshop, it's just downloading right here. I'm just gonna double click into the file that's downloaded and open it into Photoshop. Let's see if it opens straight into the app. Perfect. Here it is. You'll find inside the actual Photoshop file that you have both layers. So hopefully, Ted, these help your question. You're gonna have your portrait, and then you have your background ready to create your composition here and to use the curve to match the colors. But let's go back into Claire work. Claire, I think you've done a really great job. As Jesús says, maybe bump down a little bit that bokeh effect and for the lights,
effect, yeah.
But otherwise, very well done.
And actually, if you let me show you what I mean by that, because people may have not seen the chat. So if you put me, perfect, on my screen, what I was talking about is if you go into Filter, Blur, Gallery, and select Field Blur, that's the name that I forgot, Field Blur, you can obviously increase the blur, right? Which is what we did earlier. But if you increase the light bokeh, you're gonna get these bright highlights. See that? See, so that's basically what Claire, I think it was?
Yep.
What Claire did. They just bumped up that light bokeh without blurring the image too much, and you get that weird highlight effect. Again, if that's what you're going for, totally cool. But in terms of it looking quote unquote realistic, you would either need to blur the background more so it looks more like an actual bokeh, but still you need to, just because of the way this scene is created, I wouldn't go, much further than what you see on there, but that's just my opinion.
Yes, let's jump back into more work. We have Claire version 2 with a different subject.
With a different subject now, let me see. It looks like it's the same person.
Oh, so the different subject. So as you can see, the subject is a little bit different. Sorry, I'm going to zoom back out. So here, let's see. See if you posted another. Oh, perfect. This is not it. My version of challenge number 2, going to try a different. Oh, what I think she meant is that this is her challenge number 2, and then she's gonna go now and try with a different subject. So Claire, we look forward for your different subject. Maybe we're gonna discover it down here in the chat. But for now, we're gonna jump into Ryan's work.
Cool. So Ryan actually did that highlight technique that I showed in the video. I think he did a really good job. There's not much I can say. Actually, it looks like he might have even added a little bit of light in his shoulder, which I didn't do in the video, and I think it looks great. Did an excellent job following the video and then just going a step further and enhancing the effects. So excellent job.
Very well done. And I think it looks great because it gives you the idea that he's in the room and the light is coming from behind, so he's hitting his neck. I think that the way that he's used the face and just the side beside the cheek, because we have our cheeks, which is our most prominent area, and everything that sits from our point of the cheek into the ear is usually when you get the light reflected from the back, and of course it stops from the front. Is that correct? So you've done a very great job, Ryan. You completely conveyed the idea that the guy's in the room and the light is hitting from behind. So let's see. Not again is an original photo, still the pet thing. I think that was challenge number 1.
That was challenge number 1 where we created a pet portrait.
Yes.
Which actually we used a lot of the same techniques that we're using in today's stream, because we used camera raw in Photoshop yesterday. And we also created a black and white effect similar to what we did today. And actually we even used a profile. But it kind of drives the point home that I was making earlier, which is Lightroom was based off the camera raw engine, so you can do a lot of the same things in Photoshop as you can with Lightroom. Obviously, the advantages with Lightroom Classic are the organization, cataloging, all that good stuff for when you're, editing hundreds or thousands of photos. And obviously, Lightroom has the advantage of being a web-based system.
So we have Mia in the chat that said that she's just uploaded her design, but she still have a lot to do. Don't worry. Hopefully you get inspired by the Sue's feedback. And about this photo challenge number 1, I find it very sweet. I love what you've done with the black and white. And of course there are 2 horses kissing. So absolutely, that's a win. With me, cat, pets, horses, you win.
I like how the horses are kissing, but then the person in the middle kind of looks like, she's just
laying on her horse.
I'm just
she's
there.
laying on her best friend. Very, very well done. Not again. So Ralph, let's see your number 2. Interesting workflow. You liked it. Very nice.
Cool. So I can see right off the bat one problem that you had, which was you did an excellent job with the color matching, but the second step to that was to match the contrast and brightness of the image. In the stream, I showed how you could use a black and white adjustment layer to remove the colors so that you can better see the mismatch with brightness. So that's the one thing that I would suggest that you do there. Notice how the background has much more contrast than the foreground. Again, in reality, that wouldn't really happen. So I would just do everything you did up to this point, but then go into the curves adjustment layer and then just give it a little more contrast. And I think that as soon as you do that, it's going to look much, much better.
Because we just have to make sure that these lights have the same intensity.
The same value, yeah.
The same value.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well done, Ralph. Very well done. So just one more step before I think you're complete with it.
Inches away from the finish line.
And we have Amber with challenge number 2. Is that a selfie? Is that you? Well, we'd love to know. We'd love to get to know you. And
let us know if that's you, Amber.
Yes, so I think that's her starting point. That's the first photo. Lovely portrait.
Yeah.
And then we have the matching scene. So she has this is challenge number 2 or challenge number 1?
It says
challenge number 2. So we assume that you have actually superimposed yourself into the background. Because the starting point is still 2 different photos. Yeah. So it looks like they're definitely 2 different photos.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done such a great job that we're even questioning if there is a composite there.
Yeah.
So absolutely nailed it in terms of having a realistic composition. I thought it was an actually shooting, like a photographer shooting.
Well, because the first one, see, this is the thing, like, I kind of mentioned this in the chat, like, it's a lot easier to see the effect that this technique is creating when you have photos that are completely opposites. But in this case, both photos had very similar color tones, so it was really difficult to see. But she did a good job both matching the slight, because the after photo is slightly cooler than the original, and it looks really good. So the fact that it took us a while to figure out what was going on is a good sign.
Well done, Amber.
Some of the best compliments you can get as someone who does composites is if someone looks at a photo and says, "Oh, where'd you take that photo?" Because I've done composites where people ask me, "Oh, where'd you take that photo?" And I was like, "Oh, that's not a real photo." It's like 30 different photos. So that's the best compliment you could ever get. So
and we have Ralph coming with Mr. Meow.
There he is again.
By the way, Mr. Meow is just outside the door. We would have loved that, and if it was for me, we would have him here on the table. But I'm not sure everyone loves cat, and also it will probably destroy our fine-tuned
Yeah, you will.
setup.
The cameras will fall. The lights will fall.
The microphone, will probably start playing with the microphone. So we have him here in a photo, but he's safe and sound just outside the door playing with his toys, and he's probably sitting on the chair actually and sleeping as well. So Ralph, you've done a very nice job. I can see the texture looking so nice and crispier on his fur. You've done a very nice job. And again, this is challenge number 1, which was
that was yesterday.
Enhance a pet portrait.
Enhance. Well, no, it was retouching a pet portrait.
Okay.
And actually let people know where they can watch the replay in case they want to go and
yes.
make a
So
replay
if you missed perhaps the challenge number 1, you can also always go into our behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. This is our beloved, amazing, fantabulous landing page for the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. It's filled with information. You can join the challenge by clicking on the big blue button on the top of the page. You can join the community, which is Discord, where we are reviewing the artwork right now, by clicking on the community chat.
Yep.
And you are going to be able to watch the stream recordings again. So this is challenge number 1, as you can see.
Pet retouching?
Pet retouching, as Jesus was mentioning. Just click on watch the video in order to watch the video and get started to download the original starter file with Mr. Meow. And today we are reviewing the curve adjustment. So if you missed today, make sure that you click on watch video to replay it. And if you want to do more challenges, you have a bunch of video to watch here, and files, and all the files are there for all the previous challenges. So you're going to keep yourself busy with the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges. And of course, in order to accomplish the challenge, you need Photoshop. If you perhaps work with Lightroom, because today we're doing a Lightroom stream, but if you perhaps want to start to have a play and learn some techniques or sharpen your skill into Photoshop, and with Jesús Ramirez every day at 9 a.m., I strongly advise you to download Photoshop if you've not done so already, and you'll be able to have a free trial for a week.
Yeah, I believe it. Oh, God, I should know this. I think it's 7 days.
So after that, make sure that you join us into the community chat, and by clicking on joining us here, you're going to be transported into our amazing Discord world.
Which is where we're reviewing these submissions. One quick shout out. I just saw that Jan Cavilli has joined the chat. Hey Jan, good to see you. And
Hello,
actually Jan, I'd mentioned your name earlier. I don't know if you were here because I was showing the Adobe Lightroom tutorials. There are
let's see if we are.
They're on my screen. If you actually, no, they're not on my screen. Yeah,
am I here? Am I in the right place?
You're in the right place. Yes. So we're in the Adobe Lightroom tutorials. As I mentioned earlier, some of these are mine, some of these are Jan's, and then maybe Jan could leave in the chat who else has made courses and tutorials on this page, because I only know that I have done them, and I know that you've done them, Jan. I just don't remember everybody else who has. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us in the chat, Jan.
So let's go back and review more work. This time is running and we're going to have to say goodbye soon, but I really want to review more work. Make sure that we are on the current challenge. I'm not sure what challenge is that. Maybe it's a cover.
Maybe it's an older one. I'm not sure.
But we are going to review the current challenges that Jesús Ramirez is doing every morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. So Ceci has done challenge number 2, curves and layer. Very nice job in showing the
before and the after.
So we have a photo with a very clear background, and we have to go from the middle of the day into sunset.
Cool. So, I mean, I think that you did an excellent job at color matching. I mean, just looking at it from this angle, it looks fantastic. If I lean over more into Kladi's screen, I could definitely see some little minor tweaks that I would have made. I would have tried applying some of the lighting effects that I applied in the stream on the face of the model. Same technique. I would have done it to the side of her arms, maybe on the right side.
Just to give a little bit more of a shimmer.
Yeah, just to have, And if you're somebody who works with After Effects and video, you can refer to it as a light wrap. I would have maybe done some of that lighting that just comes and wraps around the body. I think that would have helped a little bit, but overall, I think it's a fantastic composite. I would say it's 98% there.
Yeah,
just a couple little tweaks and you got it.
She brought it from a completely daylight into almost that evening sunset feeling. So very, very well done.
And actually, if you go back, now I just thought about one other thing. If you go back
into the photo?
Yeah. So another thing that I just realized is it's a backlit photo. So if you notice where she's standing, it's completely dark. You really can't see details. I actually would make her darker as well, just because the light.
So you will say here in this area.
Yeah, because the light is coming forward, and you can actually see the ground that she's standing on. You can't really see the leaves or any of that detail, just because the photo's backlit. So you would need to match that. So I would make it just a little bit darker as well to help sell the realism of that composite. But overall, fantastic job.
Wow, we have Sean with the source image first. We have a model against a green background. And then we have here the model into our fantastic location, like a castle. And I think you've done a great job.
Yeah, so fantastic job with the color matching. It looks like the contrast is working. It looks like the color is working. The one suggestion that I have is that you didn't really take perspective into consideration. So that's why it kind of looks off a little bit. So I don't want to spend too much time, but basically you got to make sure that when you're compositing, you also match the perspective. So the eye line of the camera, so if the camera's facing up or down or how high it is off the ground, you need to make sure that it's similar when you're compositing. So maybe in this case, maybe, just judging really quick, but what I can tell here, just maybe bring the background a little bit more so you match the perspective. Yeah. But besides that, I think it looks pretty good.
And time is almost running out. We have 1 more minute, so we're gonna just go a little bit fast. Claire, original subject from Adobe Stock. Claire, that was maybe your second one? Let's see. Oh, yes, the second version. Yeah. The second version, you kept your promise and making comments. There's a second subject into the same scene. What an amazing job. I think she's done a very, very great job. She make the light source coming straight from. Probably I will accentuate the shadows a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that the lights goes a little bit too far. I will probably stop it here, more to the front. As I say, the cheeks are a great point because they point out here where the light stops.
And that's one of the things that I mentioned in the stream earlier when I was working on the composite, that you do have to use photos that kind of match the scene in terms of lighting. So she wasn't lit. The lighting on the model's image is very different than the background. So that's why you're having all these issues. You can use a lot of dodging and burning. We talked a little bit about that in yesterday's challenge on how you can dodge and burn to kind of change the lighting of a scene, and that could help a little bit. But try to find something that matches the lighting that you're working with in the background.
And I can see that we have so many more challenges, in submission, but we have 1 minute to go. So I want to remind you that, first of all, we're going to keep reviewing challenges tomorrow. And Jesús Ramirez is actually today at 2:30 Pacific time going to be on Discord reviewing voice. So if you scroll down here, into, I think, Jesús, you need to move slightly.
Wait, I need to move?
Yes, in order to show the voice channel. Let's see if I can zoom that up. Yeah, where it says voice, you'll be able to go in the link and actually hear Jesús giving you a live feedback. But before we wrap it up for today, I want to show you the schedule. So we have a busy day after us. We have, as I said, Jesús Ramirez was today, this morning, with the Daily Creative Challenge. And today we have then created Photoshop preset and learned about Lightroom. And then Daily Creative Challenge with Andrea for XD. And afterward, we're going to have branding and identity with Andrew. I think it's time to say goodbye. I want to thank everyone for joining us here. Thank you for everyone for being in the chat. Thank you for submitting your work. We're going to catch you tomorrow before we finish up with our presets, of course, with Jesús Ramirez in Lightroom. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye.